Hi, I'm Scott Wilson. I've lived in Newnan all my life, and I went to the school systems at Atkinson Grammar School for 6 years, 1 year at Temple Avenue School for the 7th grade, and entered Newnan High School in 1946. We had 5 years of high school in my year, for 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, and then they added a 12th the year before I graduated. And we were the last class to graduate full year, senior year at Newnan High School.
And do you recall any teachers that had a positive impact on your life?
Every one of my teachers at some time or another had a positive influence on me. There was not any bad teachers. There were teachers that had more personality. There were probably teachers that would teach me better than others. There were teachers who knew their subjects, but every one of them brought something to the table.
Tell me about having a fire drill in the old Temple Avenue School.
Customarily, Mr. Evans at Newnan High School would ring the fire bell, or the janitor would ring it, and everybody exited the building. And we had fire drills, probably 3 or 4 for the entire year, and everybody exited on the Temple Avenue side. And they could empty the building, and they kept a watch, and they counted how many seconds it took for everybody to get out of there. And when the last person get out of there, they stopped the watch. And we were always pretty good. They complimented us on getting out of there pretty good.
Now, what about you went home for lunch, and then when you came back, you and some of your friends had yo-yos that you like to play with?
Yes, we did. As a senior, we still were going home. We didn't have a cafeteria. Had shop and industrial arts in the basement, so they didn't have any place for us to eat. So everybody went home for an hour. We got out at 12 and went home. We ate there and came back, and sometimes we'd get back about 20 till. There was a big fad going on at that time of yo-yoing. And we would stand out on the yard in the wall in front of McCoon's and yo-yo, and we had maybe a 5-6 foot string, and we would yo-yo at the girls as they walked by. And we got to where they would walk further over toward the street on the sidewalk, and so we would get a longer string for the yo-yo. I've got one maybe about 7 feet. We'd still yo-yo at them, and yo-yo would come back. And then they got to where they walked on the grassy part between the sidewalk and the curb. And so we just kept getting longer strings. There was about 4 of us. And finally they got to where they were walking in the street. So they got away from us. And I had a string maybe 10 feet long, but the weight of the yo-yo would pull down as it went out. And so I couldn't get it back up before it had lost its momentum to spring back. So I decided one day about 10 minutes till 1 that I would go inside the building and go to one of the stairwells upstairs. We had 2 of them then. And I would yo-yo down between the stairwell. So I got up there on the second, and I had about a 10-foot string, and I would yo-yo down, and it would come back up. It was doing real good. About the 3rd time it started down, and I looked over there. Mr. Evans was rounding the corner, coming up the stairway in the open place where I was yo-yoing. So naturally, I just started pulling on the string real quickly to try to get it back up and not hit him. And he heard the commotion and turned around and looked up. And about that time, the yo-yo had come over the banister, and I picked it up, the string and everything, and put it in my pocket. Ran down to the other stairwell and went downstairs, and when I rounded the corner, there was Mr. Evans with his hand out and said, "Hey, just give it to me." So I had to give him a yo-yo. And he kept that until I graduated, but he gave it back to me at the end of the term.
Very good. Now, when you were in school, they bought the LaGrange Street property. What did that LaGrange Street property look like, and what do you recall about that when they bought it and before they built a school on it?
It was just open property. It had broom straw and small pines on it, down to probably where the football field is now. But it went from the driveway where the armory is now all the way down to the Waterworks Road on the front. So it had a lot of frontage. And I never attended school there, but I was very anxious to see what went on. So I've been out there a couple of times during its construction, as well as when after they opened. But it was on about 30 or 40 acres and went all the way to the creek that crosses underneath Waterworks Road that goes down there beside the high school football field.
How important is the community relationship with Noonan High School? Do you think that the community and Noonan High School is an important relationship?
Very, very much so. And I like what they're doing now, involving people in the community to come out to the classrooms and talk to students, as well as having students go to business and interview and talk to them. They've been to the place where I worked on many occasions and interviewed me for different things, but you've got to have that relationship. After probably 15 or 20 years after I graduated, I think it probably started then in a big way. And it was always a pleasure for me to go to class and talk, and always for them to come there too.
What did you do after high school?
I went to work for my brother-in-law at a restaurant here in town called Robert and Alf's. Worked there until spring of 1954. You've got to realize that during this time that I was in high school, from 1949 up through 54, we were engaged in the Korean War. And they were drafting at that time, and I didn't want to go to the Army, so when I turned 18 in 1951, February of 1951, I joined the United States Naval Reserve at Chambly and went to a weekend. I was called a weekend warrior, and we'd stay for the weekend, and then for 2 weeks each summer, we'd go off to an airfield. It was naval aviation. Went to Jacksonville, Pensacola, Norfolk, different airfields. And then in 1954, they were still drafting. And the United States Naval Reserve was not a deferment. So what would have happened if I had done nothing is I would have been drafted out of the United States Naval Reserve and into the Army. So there was a program where you could apply for Naval Aviation School in Memphis, Tennessee, go up there and study for 3 months, and they would give you a grade in pay. And so I did that in 1954. I was married at the time, married in 52, and went up there and earned my 3rd class petty officer designation, and then applied for active duty. And once on active duty, I would not have been drafted. Didn't mind serving in the military, just didn't want the Army. So I served 2 years, got out in July of 1956, went to work for what was then Manufacturers National Bank. It was on the Court Square, across from the recently closed Bank of North Georgia branch on the Court Square. I worked there, and then we moved to Greenville Street, where Wells Fargo is now, and that's the successor bank to the Manufacturers National Bank. And worked there until 1971. December of 1971, I resigned to help start Bank of Coweta, and I was the first president of Bank of Coweta. There were many people that had talked about banking, but nobody had ever done anything, so 8 people and myself constituted the first board of directors of Bank of Coweta and started it. And we opened in 72. And I stayed with that bank as president until February of 1994, at which time I retired. I'd had medical problems with my heart. Frankly, didn't think I was going to live a long life, and I wanted to spend some time, quality time with my family and my friends and traveling the rest of my life. And I've been retired 20 years now, so that's just about my career.